Everyone, today we will learn about the nervous system. Nervous coordination. This coordination is brought about by the nervous system. It consists of the brain, spinal cord, nerves and the sense organs. Cell body contains a nucleus. The dendrites are cytoplasmic extensions of the cell body. From the cell body arises one long process called the axon. Its length may vary from a few millimeters to 1 meter. The end of the axon terminates in a number of branched filaments called terminal branches. Sensory neurons. These carry impulses from the sense organs to the spinal cord of brain. Motor neurons. These carry impulses from the brain and spinal cord to the muscles and glands. Association neurons. These transmit impulses from one neuron to another. The neurons do not actually touch each other. They communicate with one another via synapse, where the axon terminal of one cell impinges on the dendrites of another cell. The structure of a neuron. As you can see, there is a nucleus in between the neuron, and there are many dendrites, and you can also see at the end the axon terminal, and there is also a node of Ranvier and myelin sheath also. Sensory nerve. It contains only sensory neurons. Example, optic nerve of the eye. Motor nerve. It contains only motor neurons. Example, nerves going to the muscles of the eyeball. Mixed nerve. It is the one which carries both sensory and motor neurons. Examples are nerve which goes to the tongue. The human nervous system is divided into three parts: the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, and the autonomic nervous system. The central nervous system consists of the brain and the spinal cord. The brain lies protected within the skull, and the spinal cord lies protected within the vertebral column. Peripheral nervous system consists of the nerve passing to and from the central nervous system. The autonomic nervous system controls the involuntary activities of various body parts and so forms the voluntary part of the nervous system. Central nervous system is divided into two parts: the brain and the spinal cord. The brain is divided into three main parts called the cerebellum, and the medulla oblongata. Now we'll study about these three parts in detail. This is human cerebrum. This is the largest portion of the brain, which is divided into two, right and left halves, called the cerebral hemispheres. Their outer surface is folded with ridges and grooves. Each hemisphere is internally hollow. Their walls have an outer and inner portion. The outer portion contains cell bodies of the neurons and is called gray matter. It accommodates a large number of neurons. Human cerebrum contains about 9 billion neurons. The inner portion of the cerebrum mainly consists of axons and is called white matter. The cerebrum is the seat of intelligence, consciousness, and willpower. It controls all the voluntary activities. The cerebrum increases the surface area so that more and more neurons can be accommodated in that. Cerebrum is further divided into four main parts named as frontal, temporal, parietal, occipital lobe. Cerebellum is much smaller and is located under the cerebrum. Its main function is to balance the body and coordinate the muscular activities. The cerebrum decides the action, whereas the cerebellum implements the action. For example, if you get an idea to stand up and walk, it arises in the cerebrum, but the muscles involved in that process contract or relax under the control of the cerebellum. Cerebellum gets affected by alcohol. That is why an alcoholic person is unable to coordinate his or her muscular movement properly. Medulla oblongata is the lowest part of the brain and continues up to the spinal cord. Its function is to control the activities of the internal organ, like beating of the heart, respiratory movements, peristalsis of the alimentary canal, etc. Injury to the medulla oblongata may result in a death of the person. This is a diagram of human spinal cord, which extends from the medulla oblongata of the brain and runs down almost through the whole length of the backbone. In the spinal cord, the arrangement of white and gray matter is reversed from that in the brain. Here, the inner part is the gray matter made of the cell bodies, while the outer part is the white matter made up of axons. Functions of spinal cord is to control reflexes below the neck. Second, to conduct messages from the skin and muscles to the brain. Third, to conduct commands from the brain to muscles of the trunk or torso and limbs. This is the peripheral nervous system. It consists of nerves which connect the central nervous system to all the parts of body. The peripheral nervous system is divided into somatic nervous system and autonomic nervous system. Somatic nervous system is divided into two parts, cranial nerves and spinal nerves. And autonomic nervous system is also divided into two parts, sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. Cranial nerves emerge from the brain. There are 12 pairs of cranial nerves, some of which are sensory like olfactory for nose, the optic for eyes and the auditory for ears, motor nerves like the ones going to the eye muscles, and mixed nerves like those going to and coming from the face and tongue. And spinal nerves. There are 31 pairs of spinal nerves which arise from the spinal cord. A typical spinal nerve is a mixed nerve. Each pair of nerves consists of a sensory nerve that carries messages from sensory organs such as skin to the brain or spinal cord. In reverse, there is motor nerve that brings order from the brain or spinal cord to the effector organ such as glands and muscles. It involves both voluntary and involuntary activity. Sympathetic and parasympathetic systems, which are opposite in their actions. For example, in times of fear, the sympathetic nervous system dilates the pupil of the eyes, constricts the vessels of the skin, and accelerates the heartbeat. The parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for the constriction of the pupil of the eyes, dilation of blood vessels, and slowing down of the heartbeat.